Hello guys, welcome to Daily Current Affairs and Reason program from Team Enlight. Today we will be looking at four topics. The first topic is Press Council of India. Second topic is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. The third topic is Draft E-commerce rules, and the fourth topic is Digi Saksham program. Okay, so let's delve deeper into each topic. The first topic that we are considering for the day is Press Council of India. It was in news because PCI has recently constituted a three-member fact-finding committee to look into the alleged cases of intimidation and harassment of journalists in Jammu and Kashmir. In this context, we have to know and study what are the key points and basics about Press Council of India that we should prepare for prelims from the prelims point of view. So we'll be looking at the key points. When we discuss about the key points, first we have to know that it is a statutory body under the Press Council of India Act of 1978. Its aim is to preserve the freedom of the press and to maintain and improve the standards of newspapers and news agencies' freedom and independence. What is its composition? Its composition consists primarily of a chairman and 28 other members. It is important to note that the chairman is actually selected by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha and the chairman of the Rajya Sabha and a member elected by the PCI. So the chairman is selected by a committee consisting of three members, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, the chairman of the Rajya Sabha and a member elected by the Press Council of India. What are its primary functions? We have already said one of its aim is to ensure the freedom and independence of the press and news agencies. So, in this regard, its functions include helping newspapers maintain their independence, code of conduct for journalists and news agencies, reviewing developments which are likely to restrict the flow of news, etc. In this context, it is also helpful to know what are the powers of PCI. PC has the power to receive complaints of violation of the journalistic ethics or professional misconduct by an editor or journalist. And in this capacity, it also has quasi judicial functions. Quasi judicial functions such as summoning witnesses, taking evidence under oath, demanding copies of public records to be submitted, even issue warnings, and admonishing the newspaper, news agency, editor, or journalist. Now, in this context, you should also know what are the limitations of PCI. One of the most important limitations about PCI is that PCI has limited enforcement powers. It has limited powers of enforcing the guidelines that it issues. It cannot penalize newspapers or news agencies, editors, or journalists for violation of its guidelines. PCI also only overviews the functioning of print media. It can enforce standards upon the newspapers, journals, magazines, and other forms of print media. So it does not have reviewing functioning on electronic media like radio, television, and internet media. This is an important distinction that you have to remember. So PCI only regulates print media, and not electronic media. Okay, moving on to the second topic. The second topic for the day concerns Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. It was in news because government has said that government and specifically the Ministry of Home Affairs has extended the deadline for NGOs to register for having Foreign Contribution Regulation Act registration, FCRA registration certificate. Okay, so in this context, we will be looking at what are the key points that we have to know with regard to Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, and also we also should know what are the reasons for FCRA regulation, what is the importance, what is the need for FCRA regulation. Okay, moving on. The thing is you should know that for any NGO or association to receive foreign funding, for any association or NGO to receive foreign funding, it should be mandatorily registered under FCRA. FCRA stands for Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. In this context, you should also know that registered NGOs can receive foreign contribution only for five purposes. Only for five purposes. And what are those five purposes? Social purposes, educational purposes, religious purposes, economic purposes, and cultural purposes. No other purpose. NGOs can not receive contribution, foreign contribution for no other purposes. You should also know that FCRA registration is renewed every 5 years, and NGOs have to compulsorily open an account with the SBI in Delhi to receive foreign funds. So these are some key points that you should know with regard to Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. You should also know what are the reasons for FCRA regulation and what is the need for having such regulations. You should know that in the last decade or so, the annual inflow of foreign funds have been increasing and are often not utilized for the purposes for which they are registered or granted prior permission. So in this context, government wants to make sure that NGOs receive foreign contribution only for a particular purpose and they use it for it. It is in this context that government is requesting mandatory registration. It is also important to ensure that such contributions do not adversely affect internal security of the country. There are also some alleged cases, such as that in the case of Greenpeace, whereby there were some reports citing that Greenpeace had received funds for stalling developmental projects in the country. So there are various such issues. There are also certain organizations which have been alleged that they are receiving foreign funding for promoting anti-Indian activities in the country affecting the internal security of the country. So for this purposes also it is important to have proper FCRA regulation. The last point is to enhance transparency and accountability in the receipt and utilization of foreign contribution. Even for this, for ensuring transparency and accountability, it is better to have FCRA regulations. So these are the reasons and these are the points concerning what is the need for FCRA regulations. Okay, moving on. The third topic for the day is draft e-commerce rule. This is important because due to severe criticism from various industries and some sections of the government itself, government is revisiting some provisions of the draft e-commerce rule 2021. So we will be looking at what are the key provisions of draft e-commerce rules 2021. Most important provision in this context is mandatory register. Every e-commerce company has to have register itself with Department of Promotion for Industry and Internal Trade DPIIT under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. The draft provision also limits flash sales. The conventional e-commerce flash sales are not banned as such. However, only specific flash sales or back-to-back sales which limit customer choice and increase prices and prevent level playing field will be banned. The act also makes calls for a compliance officer. The e-commerce sites have to appoint and ensure a chief compliance officer who would be a nodal contact person for 24/7 coordination with law enforcement agencies. The next point is restricting related parties dealings or transactions to ensure that none of the related parties are allowed to use any consumer information for unfair advantage. There is also a clause of country of origin. The entities will have to identify goods based on their country of origin and provide a filter mechanism at a pre-purchase stage for consumers. Other important, the other important provision is that all the e-commerce companies have to report any cybersecurity issue that they face. They must provide this information within 72 hours on any request made by the authorized government agency. Then, what are the issues with these e-commerce draft rules? One of the important issues is that the definition of e-commerce entity is very broad and does not make any distinguish between FDI and non-FDI marketplace, which is one of the reasons the draft rules were made in the first place. Despite that, it has not made any distinguish when between FDI and non-FDI marketplace. The second issue is the negative trickle down effect or the negative effect it might have on our young startups and small businesses. So, some of these provisions are alleged to be regressive and could have negative effects on startups and small businesses. Then there is the issue of fallback liability. You can note down this word fallback liability. It is important to understand this. On one hand, our e-commerce policy prohibits companies such as Amazon and Flipkart from having control over the inventory sold in their platforms. So it requires them to have less inventory, and it encourages them to have third party inventory. But on the other hand, the fallback liability makes these e-commerce firms liable in case of a seller in their platform fails to deliver goods or services due to negligent conduct which causes loss to the seller. So in such a case, the e-commerce company is responsible, or the fallback liability is upon the e-commerce company rather than on the registered seller. So this is a difficult clause. Okay, this is a clause that has been in debate for some time in the news. You can read about it. Then the last issue is issue of the tight regulation. Some of the proposed provisions, like having a compliance officer, adherence to law enforcement requests, etc., are already being covered under IT Rules 2021. So these provisions are actually already covered under IT Rules 2021 and are a repetition in these draft rules. So these are the key issues that you have to know in the context of e-commerce draft rules. Moving on to the next topic. The last topic that we are considering for the day is Digi Saksham program. This was in news because Union Labour Ministry and Microsoft India have jointly launched this digital skill platform, Digi Saksham, to enhance youth employability and to enhance the skills of youth, digital skills of youth. So, what are the key points that you have to know under this program? The first thing is that it provides free of cost training in digital skills. It will be provided to more than 3 lakh youths in the first year itself. Second thing is the priority. It gives priority to the job seekers of semi-urban areas belonging to especially disadvantaged communities, including especially those who have lost their jobs due to COVID-19 pandemic. The third important point that you have to know is regarding training. The training is to be conducted under model career centers and national career service centers, especially for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes that are located across the country. It is implemented by Aga Khan Rural Support Program of India, which is Aga Khan Rural Support Program of India is a non-denominational, non-government development organization working for the betterment of rural communities by providing direct support to local communities. So you can keep this in point. Digi Saksham program, although it looks like the name appears like a government scheme, it is actually implemented by Aga Khan Rural Support Program India. What is the role of NCS portal, National Career Service Portal, in this program? The job seekers can access the training through NCS portal. So the implementation of this program will be aided by the NCS portal. So these are the key things that you have to know with regard to Digi Saksham program. With more news articles, we will join you tomorrow. Thank you.